For over 30 years, Julia Scher has created media-based work about surveillance and electronic security and the power that inhabits these systems. Her works have taken various forms, including interactive installations, modified surveillance systems, interventions, tours, photographs, websites, films, videos, and audio recordings. Solo exhibitions of her work have been organized by the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, Harvard University, Freie Art Centre d'Art Contemporaine Kunsthal, Walker Arts Center, Wexner Center for the Arts, and others. For tonight's talk, Scher will focus on durational aesthetics, also the title of her upcoming book, examining the effects time can have on collection, preservation, presentation, and discussion across multiple fields of study, including art. Scher's ideas about durational aesthetics extend beyond conservation and installation adaptations to bigger concepts about the necessary context of then and now. Please welcome Julia Scher.
Hello, it's a great pleasure to be here this evening to speak to you and with you, and hopefully I cut short the hour to a briefer talk so that we can have a discussion. It was earlier mentioned that that might be interesting to some people. I would first like to thank the Society for Contemporary Art and their ability to bring in different kinds of voices to the Art Institute and to the school. With respect to this, I've sprinkled in things that might be relative to students as well as for people who are looking at different perspectives on the horror and dimensions of surveillance and security issues today. Thank you to John McKinnon, SCA Program Director, Robin Farrell, Assistant Curator, Ann Goldstein, Deputy Director, Chair and Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art, and Patty Sternberg, thank you for your nice chance meeting earlier today and your introduction. I will shuttle between pictures on the screen, but I will focus on the idea of telling a story for this talk. I use the word performance lecture. It's a form that I use a lot. It means that the lecture takes on certain attributes of art. Might be a particular interest to the students that I see live art as a growing art praxis today in Europe, where I teach, and in many of the other schools I visited in the United States during this trip. If I'm speaking slowly, too slowly for you, just raise your hand. I'm used to trying to speak slowly. At the beginning, I'll just be talking, and in the middle, there will be a short audio piece from Security World, and then at the end there will be two short, humorous, well, maybe they're not humorous for you, videos. One is an air guitar, and the other is a lip sync. So for those of you who wanted to hear about deep CIA protocols and the darkness of the web out of control and the horror of out of control governmental regulation, this is not the talk for you. Some of the issues that disturb me today relative to all these fields of the deep recesses of humor and also the cortex of the net are issues around identity. Identity in terms of being alone, but also trying to meet up or touch people or yourself in different ways. This is a painting from 1985, just before I started using electronic surveillance equipment. A year after this painting, I became the first woman member of the Metropolitan Burglar and Fire Alarm Association as a Class 1 certified installer. But indeed, the core of identity in this particular talk will run through many of the examples I'm trying to show. This graphic here is a squished up version of all the slides that I'm presenting. So compressing time. So durational aesthetics, what does duration mean? And what is time? And what is compression of identity over time? What is your identity over time? And who cares? Why would anyone care? Does art care? Okay, no one cares. Well, I don't have a mic to wander over here as I would like, but here is Universal City in Los Angeles, California, the center of Hollywood. Okay, so I love Hollywood. I love groupies. I love all that stuff. I love movie stars. I love groupiedom, but I was born there, and someone else here in the audience was also born nearby in Hollywood, and know the deep, dark wonders of Hollywood film production and television. And here I was in the middle, moved to the San Fernando Valley where the studios were, but also where the studios were was Lockheed Martin, where they built airplanes and secret bombers. And there was also GM, the place where they put together parts for GM cars. And men who worked behind the walls of big, dark factories made things of the future to protect the United States and to make us move forward on the road with transport. Right here is pictured, however, something of deep interest to the talk. It is an overhead shot of an outdoor drive-in movie theater. And here I spent a lot of time getting in the dark trunks of cars, sneaking in, doing things with groups of people I hardly knew, trying to watch a movie. Well, I wasn't really watching movies, but this place was right next to the McDonald's in the 50s. I was born in 54, so this was a 50s shot of this place, of this drive-in movie theater, where under cover of separated forms, audio and visual, being separated, you would exist. You would explore yourself and the screen simultaneously. Now, you all know that 50s TV shows and music shows were all lip-synced, right? So in a way, this formation added to my artistic currency. That there was system failure in this. There was a Catholic high school right next door, and sometimes the films didn't work and people were in dark cars, was all a part of this. So this was part of my growing up, among other things like, icky things, domestic abuse, bad food, parents, all this stuff. Okay. Now, my father was born in St. Louis and moved to Chicago. There's Ronald Reagan, another Illinois boy. This is a picture taken by my father, poolside during wartime, somewhere at either the Beverly Hilton Hotel or the Beverly Hills Hotel, deep in Hollywood. My dad hitched across the United States from Chicago, I don't know when, in the 20s maybe, to be a movie star. But apparently, according to my cousin Paul here, he was a horrible actor, and he wasn't that cute, even though my dad was deluded in thinking he was. So he became a groupie. So here is evidence of one of his forays, group side of men who didn't go in the military in the 40s. And there's Ronald Reagan, and there's some beefcake. So this is from my father's camera, and I know very little else about him except for my cousin Paul and my Aunt Ann, and from Susan and Noel and the stories that I hear. On the left is a picture of my father in Chicago in 1931, and this is from the, I'm having a blank, because I heard you guys didn't like reading, from the world of, the what of progress? The world of progress? What was it called here? Century of Progress, okay. And he is posing as a fake guard. on the left. Now, I looked it up online. These weren't the real uniforms from the Century of Progress. So I'm really worried that I'm showing you a fake picture, my father faking a real fake guard uniform from the Century of Progress. And so I apologize to anyone here who worked there. And little did I know, I wasn't really conscious that years later I would also create a fake guard uniform. So on the left is my father with a real job, although I'm not sure it was real, and then me on the right dressed up as a fake Security by Julia guard. So my secret program here doesn't seem to be working, but nevertheless, in this particular picture, we jump into the year 1988 or early 89. And this is Security by Julia 2, where I'm not only posing as a fake guard, but using the color pink to designate a difference from a normal or a normative security system. Now, I know I've jumped quite a bit ahead from early years, but just to make the connection, with the time span from my dad doing fake guarding stuff to my doing also fake guarding stuff, I thought was interesting enough to squish together to round out a kind of secular aesthetics around costume and identity and people not feeling secure and not feeling just right. The color pink was the color used for being gay during World War II in the NS camps. It's the color of gay, of ACT UP. It's the color pink of innocence, of children, of little girls, of virginity, of sweetness, not harm, not protection, but vulnerability. So the reason for the Security by Julia Guard outfits in pink were to play with and bring up notions of protection and threat in the present, not in the past, to look for ways of understanding media or the mediation of guards of blue through other colors, through other systems. The syntactical break between security and no security was of interest to me at the time, and I was reading Baudrillard, and we can go on with that afterwards. The idea of a performative pink was very interesting to me at the time, and I did 46 Security by Julia projects, each one invoking the play between protection and threat, security and non-security, between consciousness and unconsciousness. And if I dare add another word, I hate to add one more word to this, but I'll add it just for today. The word is uncertainty. And what role do art productions and artists have in the play, in the theater of uncertainty today? It's certainly a matrix worked out in film, in video, in multimedia installation art, in poetry, and in pretty much every form I can think of. So I would say that it's uncertainty bound to identity, in this case, would be one of the interesting components of this series. In this project, I hired old lady guards to sit there and watch and control artist space. But indeed, today, I am older than the oldest guard I ever hired. Okay, my buttons aren't working. Anyway, this was the last Security by Julia 46, where the guards couldn't even talk to each other. So there was over the time of the 46 projects, many theatrical events occurred, and the last one is me here with Johanna Reich, who is a very powerful performance artist today in Europe, acting out this inability to communicate security or anything. In addition to live performance, or live spaces, or live places under surveillance as my work, is the use of syntactical notification, of warnings, of clarifications to get messages across. In this case, it's a warning sign from Security by Julia in glass. which was an addition, and it says, "Warning, you have entered a high-tech security and surveillance zone. Your image is being recorded onto videotape for your protection." So this is an outdated sign. No longer does videotape occur, and image alone is not recorded per se. It's image, smell, sound, data bits are logged into the data sphere and not just confined to one particular image. This piece is 1994 and carried the message of that time. The brutal aesthetics of warning signs today cannot be underestimated as raw material for young artists today. I encourage you all to subject yourself to looking at dealing closely with the language that is performative, asking you to behave a certain way. Behavior is very important as one of the cruxes of my work, and in this piece called Public Travel Area from 1988, I'm working the cameras and working the monitors to record people walking through an enclosed corridor space. Here I am dressed as a migrant, but it's 1988, so it's uncanny that the footage today looks very relevant, but you never know when you're making stuff, right? You never know what the present brings into the future. So durationally, this is a very interesting occurrence. The aesthetics of command and control situations in real space have interesting interlocking connections with contemporary events. Why is that useful for artists? It's very useful for artists. In brief, this is an example of a work where live surveillance is mixed with fake footage in an attempt to get people to respond in a particular way to an artwork. This is Security by Julia 1, and it is at the front, or the frontage, of the Collective for Living Cinema in New York. In addition to having live camera images broadcast live what was going on inside the theater, I had pre-recorded a chase scene between two of my girlfriends, Celeste Olalkiaga and somebody else, and they're running around inside the theater in a horrible chase scene. But anyway, people at the front of the street would look at the screens and say, "Oh my God, there's something going wrong in there," and they would go into the theater and ask Mark McElhacken, "What's going on in there? Somebody's attacking somebody." And of course, it wasn't true. I continue to work on this kind of platform where uncertainty plays a kind of mixed role. Do you know the movie or the book, in fact, The Old Man and the Sea? How over time something is still kind of ground out during the literature, during the fantastical fiction. It's ground down, it grinds your bones to death. It takes time, but you read it, it's not really linear. It is this whole thing. And for me, these aesthetic natures of even this kind of writing is wonderful and smart and important. Okay. I went larger. This is the same idea, but this time it's the entire city of Buffalo was put under surveillance for a month with the help of an NEA grant. Of course, you couldn't do that today. But here's Leslie playing guard in front of the Amiga computer banks. Each of these projects, everything was recorded onto videotape. So I have about thousands of hours of videotape. In the background, you'll see the computer. You'll see monitors displaying what's live, and you'll see the fake guard, and she's calling in reports. It's a longer description. I was also involved in the mid-90s for playing with something my father was a failure at. He was a salesman, and I guess he wasn't very good. And he, at one point of his life, why am I mentioning my dad and not the mom stuff? Well, it's a short lecture. And there's, you all have your trippy, your durational formula from early life. Anyway, he was a bad salesman and worked at Sleepy's in Burbank, which was also near the film industry. And he would be alone in the store, and we would go to pick him up in the car, and there'd be no one in the store, and we would wait and wait for the store to close, and we would wait, and sometimes a customer would come in, oh my God, and me and my sisters and my mom would pretend we were customers, and we would go up to the beds, and we'd say, oh, this bed is really good, this is a great bed, trying to get people interested to buy a bed. Okay, all right, don't worry. This was about AIDS and my friends dying. And I've made, I think it's about 8 surveillance beds till now. And they're in different conditions, different kinds of collectors' homes where people will not tape themselves or, with some exception, tape very interesting things. Everything is recorded and everything is sent back through the monitors so that you can see yourself live and recorded versions of yourself simultaneously on screens. I put this slide here because this is from an exhibition here at the MCA, a show called Performance Anxiety. And it was a wonderful show, and I did a piece called Wonderland at the MCA, and it was a great show with lots of cool art, and it was children taking control of the surveillance and control mechanisms. They learned how to plug in televisions and monitors, hook up cameras, record decks, and use the internet to get out. But this was 1997, so it was very early, but the kids were very good and learned quickly. At the same time, there were a number of audio works, and we're going to hear now a short segment of an audio work. Now, this is not audio surveillance per se, but it is a commentary. The audio works were inspired by my cousin Paul because he uses sound. He finds things in sound, in smell, in the space of a building, not so much optically. So my Security by Julian number 3 was devoted to sound, telling you where to go and what to do without having to see anything. In this piece, Security World, it was more complicated. It was a large room filled with different zones of security, from high to low. And we'll just listen to a short segment now.
From the smallest laptop to the very largest supercomputer. It is used to manage everything from personal information to giant corporations. Shareware is the world's favorite solution for behavior management. And it is the leading software choice for the emerging information superhighway. Our products include the Shareware 7 Multimedia Security Database.
So the late 90s were filled with projects dealing with sound and the internet. As the first artist on AutoWeb with Security Land, then came Wonderland, One House, and a variety of other projects on the web. American Fibroids, which talked about America and being in a chunk like a big blob fibroid, and a number of other projects dealing with guards, with pink, with security and perimeter protection. As it neared the year 2000, I made a number of objects, including this one, Pussy Fleischmeister, and suffice it to say, it's 2 gas canisters that were brutally cut in half and kind of dismembered so that in its stead could hold audio and video recording equipment. And this is an example shot of one of those pieces. I won't go too much now into teaching, but one of the wonderful experiences I've had teaching surveillance and surveillance architectures over time is to look at places that are hidden or not seen. And these include toxic dump sites, waste sites, hidden industrial zones, and places of pain, damage, collateral damage, suffering, and prisons. And this is a shot from a couple of these tours put together. So during this year of 93, 95, 2008, and 2016 was one work called Predictive Engineering. That is, every time the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art added a new piece of its building, I set up surveillance to record the museum as it was. And these are the projects of predictive engineering, which is a long-standing, multifaceted project which includes taping people running around the museum in chase scenes and playing it back with live. Predictive engineering is one of the 6 subcategories that Gary Marks in the 80s designated as part of the maximum security society. So I used that term to describe this piece. Each iteration contains all or most of the footage of each of the other iterations. So full recordings of each of the gallery's years becomes part of the next piece. In fact, the museum itself only bought an algorithm. They bought an algorithm of how much footage, which was shot and recorded, would be part of the next piece. So here you see some shots from the first predictive engineering in 93 and 1997, 98. And at the bottom lower left, oh, you can see my cursor. Oh, my God. That's a real museum trustee who was surprised that there were naked people running around his museum. This is an overhead shot of one of the cameras, which is preserved and is re-shown again in the 2016 version. So basically, it is a durational piece over time. I was able to work on this and write on it more thoroughly thanks to a Mellon Foundation grant that the museum received, granting 7 artists time and space to do artistic research on their work. From this, I came up with several cool notions, one of which is this idea of durational aesthetics, that over time, what is it you have to question? What is it you look at? What is it you see? Cell phones. I have mine here. And it's a body extension, in the same way a surveillance camera to me is a body extension. Predictive engineering finds visitors' own live images mixed in with fake. So your image would be followed by a naked person running around, and you would wonder, where is that naked person? Where can I go to find them? And of course, you could run around the museum and never find them. Although some people have found them. There was also a website. Here is a view of people fighting in the hallway. I love corridors and fight scenes. You know, Pathé, from the very earliest days of film, domestic fights with broken furniture and fight scenes were the films. So I'm going with that. The duration from early French film to now is long, but I'm very excited about it. The architectural diagram of each of these pieces has mutated over time. Now, I call it the DNA of art. Okay, don't laugh. Okay, I can see you're all laughing, but the idea of artistic DNA, I think, is a very interesting one. And each of the iterations of predictive engineering, it's grandpa or grandma, then mom, and then the newest one is the baby. Each of the iterations of the work takes a new architecture and a slightly different formation. This is the newest formation at SF MoMA. Oh, there's no architects here. Oh, shit. Okay. It was embedded in a group show called Film as Place, where the whole museum was basically, with a few cameras, put under surveillance and images routed to the viewer, with text overlay warning you about surveillance and intriguing audio, saying things like, welcome to predictive engineering. Your body juices are important to us here, deep inside SF MoMA. Thank you for coming. Okay. There's a no God. Okay. So this is one of the views of inside with warning tape. The ingredients are Max Patch, which is a ability to make a network routing of sound, lighting, and visuals, and text. Monitors, overhanging monitors, speakers, and people. It is people who make these installations live. It's really not the stuff in the room. It's people who are the artwork. In this case, I refer you to, Marshall McLuhan And it's a very McLuhan-esque artwork in many ways. It's another view from Predictive Engineering. So in addition to the chase scenes and the fights of predictive engineering, there's also the connection to the building, to the new architecture, and what it means to be an artist in an institutional space. Here is Larry Shea, who's a video artist, hanging off the edge of the roof of the SF MoMA, and he is part of the found footage, or the fake footage, that goes into this artwork. He didn't get hurt. There's two things, yes, I don't, okay, longer conversation. In addition to the features of installation art, putting stuff in a room to show or to have something shown on it that you can dismiss or not, is also, do you know Metzger and autodestructive art? Okay. All right, well, in the time I have remaining, I won't discuss his work, but I recommend if you are young artists here, look him up. Really brilliant guy, really wonderful art. But in this case, the equipment has been removed from its location, its normative location in the museum. So often people report the equipment is missing. Somebody took the monitor. But of course, it's just part of the artwork. The construction and the removal of work is also durational, and it's also an experience of the museum. You go to this museum for years and years, and stuff goes in and out, and beautiful paintings that you remember come in, and then they leave. They exit, but where do they go? Where do they circulate? My father was here in the 20s. What did he see? What did he know? What does that look like now? So these are questions that I'm very interested in for the aspect of this work. I just put in one student's work, great students in Germany, as all of us who are teaching in Germany have. Most are incredibly brilliant. Here's a picture of Eva Maria Schaller, who is performing in the street, and it's a piece, Do Not Turn Around, Do Not Turn Around, and it was recently shown in Graz. And she's a spectacular performer and does her own great things in public space, not in institutional space per se. And she's part of a traveling group of performers that I recently went to Thailand with and had a great experience with the students there. The last picture piece I'll show before the two short videos, if you want to see them, if you're tired by now, we don't need to see the video. I left them for the end. What am I doing now? Well, I'm working on this idea of an alien landing pad. And for not just for aliens from outer space, but aliens of all of us. We're all aliens. And I know you're saying, that's the wrong word. You don't use that word now. Okay, so you don't use that word now. You don't use refugee. Well, what word do you use? What words are you using in your art? What is your new work looking like? What's the syntax? What can be repaired? What can be broken off? It's up to you. So in this case, I proposed an alien landing pad for a roof of a museum. This one's SF MoMA, and frankly, Tom Sachs did a great landing pad, a NASA landing pad, across the street at Yerba Buena. It was a beautiful show, much better than my idea by like 1,000 times. Great artists. So what is it about this production? There is a lot of system failure in my work, and I accept that, but you have to move on. Why? Why would you move on when you fail? Why do you move on when you fail? Do we like challenges? Do we like uncertainty in new art? Do we demand uncertainty in new art? Yes. Have you seen the Whitney? Yes. We have to demand that. It's our job. It's a job. It's expression. We have to critique. Why? Why do we have to? You're a young artist. Why do we have to? You know why. You know why. You just have to put in your work, and if you fail, you continue. Well, no one liked this idea, and I proposed it to a couple places. My big idea, I thought, was alien landing pads for different sized aliens. So you'd have a big landing pad for the big aliens, medium for the medium size, and tiny for the tiny little aliens. Okay, but it didn't work. It didn't work out. is it too long? And I thought we could have discussion. I made this short. You still want to, are you up for video or are you too tired? Too much? Too exhausting? No breathing, okay. Let me describe first before we run. They're going to run it from the booth. Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus is one of my favorite videos. It is a ball of construction and deconstruction. It is a ball to take down architecture. It is for the walls of the institutional state to be questioned, to be built in a video studio and then rammed. And not only does she just ram it with a ball, she rams it with her body. She takes her body, she's riding, okay, I know it's sexy. I know she's really beautiful. And I know it's horrible. I know it's not politically correct to say that. She's a young woman on a ball, wrecking the walls. It's staged, it's fake. She's not really tearing down a building. But what is she doing? What is she doing with her ball? Okay, do you love Miley Cyrus like I love Miley Cyrus? Okay, so Wrecking Ball. To seize the tools of the industry and remain them for herself, for her own artistic intent and desire. What else does Miley do? What else does she do with this video? Well, is it about abuse? Is it about licking things? I mean, what is it about? Where does she take it? Okay, I don't go anywhere near where she takes it. But I have been doing lip syncs for 31 years now. And this is one of the latest. And, should we play the air guitar first? Okay, and then we don't have to do the air guitar. No. Okay, I also do air guitar. You're wondering, what's this got to do with surveillance and security? Well, it has to do with pain and comedy and what the heck were people doing in the 50s on TV that I was watching all day long while my parents sat around watching TV. People lip sync. Every song was fake. Everything was fake. And I sat there all day, all weekend. I didn't read. I didn't do sports. I didn't do... Television. It's from television. I get this from YouTube. Miley and air guitar is on my cell phone. It is a body extension. It is self-surveillance. It is looking at the self. It is identity functionality to a new core where we have to look at and accept our artificial intelligent futures, where maybe we are more robot than not. Maybe this cell phone is more of a new robot than not. And what's wrong with that? What is that? What is that with your iPhone and your cell thing? What is that? Okay, we know what it is. But these are two pieces that touch on humor. It's also a sad and pathetic older lady wishing she was Miley Cyrus, basically. So maybe we just look at these and then, yeah, okay. Maybe that's enough. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.